Yesterday, somehow, I remembered APJ Abdul Kalam and wrote a note about him on various groups, including Geological Society of India group and SPSTI. It was a chance that I happened to meet him. A great chance. Normally, an ordinary teacher would never be able to get across to a sitting president of India for discussing academics. He was a great man with a difference. I had written an article, a one-pager in Current Science, that famous science journal coming from Bangalore. Not many know among the masses that that journal was started by C.V. Raman, and it's a prestige for anyone to publish even half a page in Current Science. As a student, I used to call Current Science as the Nature magazine of India. And I happened to publish an article by chance in Nature in 71 March when I was just a fresh pass out of MSc. I'd done my dissertation with the great Ashok Patwardhan sir, and it was being the son of a librarian. I had the habit of shuffling through old magazines, and I should shuffle through Nature in the main library. But for seeing Current Science, I had to go to chemistry department. The old issues of Current Science were not available in the main library. So that was my association with Current Science and Nature. And why I talk about Current Science is that a small one-pager written by me following a lecture in the University of Cincinnati with the Indian crowd on a Sunday afternoon when a young couple took me from my daughter's place to the university for a chat with the Indian community. The chat was focused on potential of Indian geoheritage, emulating the example of the Grand Canyon, the Niagara Gorge, the Great Barrier Reef, and various geoparks and geosites and geotrails, geotracks across the world. Those days I was associated with a UN program called International Year of Planet Earth. It was a 3-year triennium, and it was about to begin, and by chance I had been associated by some global leaders and made a member of the US National Committee of International Year of Planet Earth. It was strange. I happened to be a visiting scholar in the University of Cincinnati, thanks to some friends who had been called to India on an expedition to Spiti Valley by Professor Dhiraj Mohan Banerjee. He was kind enough to associate me with that expedition. And just before coming to Cincinnati, I'd just quickly gone to him in Delhi University to ask him the address of Thomas Alger. So it was the beginning of that meeting happened in so many ways. Dhiraj Banerjee sir was known to me since I was a phosphate worker, and he had been a phosphate worker when he was much senior to me, but I'd known him well, and we had been quite interactive with each other for a long time. Going back to Dr. Kalam, not many know that all his degrees were honorary, and he was actually not a formal PhD holder. I didn't know that. I came to know it much later. So I happened to, in my excitement, just not pen down but type down what I gave, the lecture I gave in the day to the Indian diaspora in the University of Cincinnati. To my surprise, that article got published in Current Science very, very quickly. It was about a month, and somebody had sent me the PDF file. I'd actually mentioned Dr. Kalam in that article. Dr. Kalam and Dr. Manmohan Singh both. I'd written this, that a country with a scientist as its president and an economist as its prime minister, if it could not harness its geoheritage and become rich through ecotourism and geotourism and geoexploration and geological management, disaster management, through science, through scientific awareness, that's a tragedy. I don't exactly remember whether it was some staff of the Rashtrapati Bhawan who had put up my article to him because Dr. Kalam had been mentioned there, or it was my PDF which I had posted to him, which got me a mail from Rashtrapati Bhawan from Dr. Kalam. Now that mail is deleted, I don't even have it. I couldn't trace it in my mailbox. Because my address was given at Cincinnati University. He had written something like this: when you're back in India, meet me. And I reached Chandigarh on 7th March. I was still on sabbatical. The convocation of the university was being held, and to my surprise, Kalam was the chief guest of the convocation. It was a quickie because he had to go to PGI, and it was not a full convocation, but nevertheless, I attended that convocation. And I happened to tell the then Vice Chancellor, who was my schoolmate, that Kalam wanted to meet me. He laughed. I also laughed. Nobody believed that he wanted to meet me. And I never thought it's possible to talk in a minute or so. So I wrote to the secretary of Kalam, Nair, who had been in touch with me on his behalf, that I'm back in India and I would like to meet him as per his desire. Normally, I would always like to meet Kalam, but that was great that he wanted to meet me. And surely, it was a hell of an excitement. Those days, a youngster, Manjit Majumdar, from his name Manjit, he looked like a Punjabi. And that's how I had got in touch with him, was also as excited, rather even more excited than me about geoheritage. And he happened to be in Delhi when a meeting with Kalam had been fixed. The day was 10th April 2007. And I was living in Noida with my sister-in-law. And I took an auto to go to Rashtrapati Bhawan. And the auto guy wasn't speeding up, and somehow I was under great stress that Manjit would be waiting somewhere and I would catch up with him. And somehow we made it to Rashtrapati Bhavan in time. And I had, I don't know why, just thought of taking my wife along to meet Kalam because our whole family was a great fan of Kalam. In fact, I didn't know of a single family which was not a fan of Kalam. All the kids. After Nehru, he was the most popular constitutional uh, uh, position holder who was looked at with great respect by all. So we reached the Rashtrapati Bhawan and I had sought permission to carry my laptop. There was no big frisking, but I opened it and showed them. I think I left my bag outside and just carried the laptop in hand. I'd taken care that I would charge it well. That was my first laptop. I had actually bought it in the winter festival, November festival in Cincinnati, and I had already kept the laptop and that presentation open, and Kalam said, "Don't worry about that. Tell me what you want to say." And I somehow managed to put my laptop in front of him, but still, since he was sitting on his table, and surprisingly, his table was small, in a corner. It was not a big table. Rashtrapati Bhawan office. We were in his office, but his table was small. And I explained to him. I even asked him if he knew the story of the environment and the geological history of the red sandstone, which was such a attraction, architectural attraction of the Indian history. He said he didn't know, and he quickly rang one Dr. Goyal, whom I didn't know, and he said he is the Secretary of Earth Sciences, and you meet him tomorrow. And he made me talk to him. And Goyal said, okay, you come over at 10 o'clock or so, and we reached it was fixed, and we met him next day. And I happen to say that bureaucrats normally don't understand it. And I didn't know that Dr. Goyal was actually a scientist. He said, don't worry, he's a friend. We have worked together. He didn't even say this, that I'm the President of India telling him to meet you. He said, we have been colleagues, and you meet him tomorrow. And Manjit Mazumdar and I both went to Kalam, to Kalam together, and we went to Goyal next day together. And my wife was all the time feeling a bit uneasy that I was lecturing to a person of the level of President of India and of the level of APJ Kalam. He was much bigger than the post he held. For us, he was much bigger than the post he held. He was great. We spent about 40 minutes with him, and when we were coming out, my wife was keen for getting a few pictures clicked with him. I was not feeling comfortable telling him that we want a picture with him, but he noticed that she was saying something to me, and I could tell him that she is keen to have a picture with him. He pressed the bell and the photographer came, and I had given my card to him, and he passed on that card, or I gave another card to the photographer, and he told him, send him these pictures, and I got those pictures by email from Rashtrapati Bhawan. That was APJ Kalam, and this story has been told umpteen times in various meetings, and I've written about it umpteen times on the Facebook, and talked about it a number of times in my lectures. In fact, it makes one of the slides about geoparks future in India's future with geoparks, and that India didn't have, even today, doesn't have a single geopark of UNESCO standard, and China has scores of them, and in fact, China is the biggest competitor with the USA and European countries. So, just a little bit about. Later, I was always in touch with Kalam, and rather, I was always sending some stuff about Himalayas and Indian geological story to him. And later, once a colleague, Dr VK Jindal, who is a well-known physics professor, a nanotechnologist, is a neighbor. He was a neighbor in the campus, and he was a neighbor in the university. He was bringing out a souvenir for Chandigarh Science Congress, and he had asked number of people, chief ministers, governors, etc., to give message for the souvenir volume. And he was very sad that, but for that governor who had been UPSC chairman, Kidwai perhaps, who was Haryana governor, who was a illiterate person, a PhD, who sent him a message. The others, those chief ministers, were important, but chief ministers are always important. They're not care to send anything. And he said, "Can you get me a message from Kalam?" I said, "I can write." He was no more the president, but I knew his email. It was then having Kalam in his email. Now it's not operational. It was working from his residence, which he had as ex-president of India. And to our surprise, within half an hour, we got a PDF file with the writing ex-president of India and Kalam's picture and signature, and a very thoughtfully worded message. I had indicated that we want this message. I explained what is Chandigarh Science Congress, that it is being attended by so many thousands of students who would be seeing it, and it was a very strong message for popular science and science contribution to society. I still kept that souvenir as a memory with me. I had not thrown it away. Normally those souvenirs, I didn't have some space to keep so many volumes with me. And when this souvenir was released in the CHASCON, we call it, Chandigarh Science Congress, it was initiated in the regime of Professor R.C. Sopti. He was always very, very enthusiastic about taking science to society. He was always doing it. In fact, we shared this love of science for society. When that volume was opened and they shuffled through it and they saw the message from Kalam, they were smiling but curious how this message came. And somebody on the stage, Jindal was not on the stage, but somebody on the stage said that this message was received by Professor Jindal from Ahluwalia. And later, the Vice Chancellor jokingly said, "You guys don't follow protocol. This message, you don't have the rights, the protocol rights to write to the former President of India." I said, "I know, but we just did it on that." It was laughed off, but I say this, that Kalam was Kalam. It didn't matter to me that he was the President of India then, and it didn't matter to me that he was no more the President of India. For me, there was one President of India before, or two, Sarvapalli Radhakrishnan, whose speech I always used to listen on radio. And Of course, Rajendra Prasad was like Nehru for us. He was a freedom fighter, and he was not the normal types of presidents of India we had later. So, that much about Kalam, sir. We surely need millions of Kalams across. Kalam was an ordinary schoolboy, a poor schoolboy who rose to a position where he got Bharat Ratna even before he became the President of India. And I distinctly remember a story about him sending a money order. These days when we send money transfer electronically, he had sent a money order to his brother, perhaps elder brother, to give biryani to the entire village, celebrating his Bharat Ratna. And we recently saw a program on Sony Live on the Rocket Boys, and one of the boys, Rocket Boys, is Kalam. Kalam became a part of the thinking of our family after that. The entire extended family was greatly excited that my wife, Neeta, and I, we had been to Rashtrapati Bhawan, and we had a chat with him, a scientific chat with him. And same was with Manjit Mazumdar. All his students and friends were very excited. It couldn't happen with any other president of India. Kalam was Kalam. Kalam was Kamal, great wonder of India, great wonder of Indian science, and a great wonder of India's history. God bless the spirit, the noble spirit.